go through. Let's look at some fantasy football teams. I'm assuming that the majority of y'all are already past your trade deadline. We have a few sickos that I know are going to be sending us actual trade offers. And then we are going to be looking at submitting starting lineups. It's going to be the main thing to do this time of the year. I mean, obviously, 99% of us are already past that trade deadline. But as I go through and set up this live stream, please make sure if you're watching this later on and you weren't able to come out live, you fix your life, you subscribe to the channel. That way you can actually come out and hang out with us in these live streams. Make sure you drop a like on this bad boy. And if you ever want to check out any of these cool player props, one of my favorite player props this week is actually going to be the Garrett Wilson 50.5 receiving yards mark with Mike White under center. You can go find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the description of this live stream in the comment section. When you sign up to Underdog with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. Not only are you going to get your first deposit matched, but on top of this, you are going to be getting a free Patrick Mahomes bet only for people who use promo code FLOCK. You're going to get this if you used promo code FLOCK 2 years ago. As long as you used our promo code, you should be getting this weekend. Super excited about that, but we are almost done setting up this live stream. Just got to turn this chat to subscriber only. Have to slow it down a bit so we don't have any bots coming out here and spamming. And I think just send out a little poll. And yeah, Bones coming out with our first trade question. I mean, we have another trade question coming out from Grant. So that's what I thought. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, obviously I like fantasy football a little bit more than the average person, but I think you should not have your fantasy football trade deadline until the fantasy football playoffs. At least that's my personal opinion. I know most people are going to disagree with that though. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's dive into Bones' first question, which is trade CMC and Devontae Adams for Travis Etienne, Stephon Diggs, and Chris Godwin. We also have Saquon Barkley and Tyreek Hill, no flex spot. Very fair deal, where I think if we're going from Christian McCaffrey, now that we have the Elijah Mitchell ruling that he is out for the rest of the season, or at least the rest of the fantasy football season, here I think you would much prefer having Christian McCaffrey over Travis Etienne, and I mean, the gap there is going to be arguable, but everybody will agree to go CMC. Beyond that, if we're going to look at Devontae Adams versus Stephon Diggs, I personally am going to go ahead and take Stephon Diggs. Getting Chris Godwin for the flex is a viable option, where if you are desperate for that flex, if it was going to be very difficult for you to go through and find someone that you liked off the waiver wire, I'm fine making the deal. It's a very fair trade. I think it is really going to come down to your personal preference. But Grant coming out says, in a 12-team PPR league, big trade, I'm trading Keenan Allen, Barkley, JT, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So we're trading our entire roster for Tyreek Hill, CMC, Hollywood Brown, and T. Higgins, who wins. So if we're going from Keenan Allen to T. Higgins, I think we're getting a slight upgrade there. If we're going from Saquon Barkley to Jonathan Taylor, I think it's, actually, I'm sorry, they're on the same side of the deal. If we're going from Saquon Barkley to CMC, you're getting a slight upgrade there. If we're going from Jonathan Taylor to Tyreek Hill, we're getting an upgrade there. But we do have to downgrade from Amon-Ra St. Brown to Hollywood. Honestly, I think the upgrades that we're getting across the boards worth downgrading in that one spot, even if you do really like Amon-Ra St. Brown. But 1 second, ladies and gentlemen, you can tell I'm about to start sweating. I forgot to turn on the fan. I need to stand up. I'll be back in half a second. Just got to flip that switch. Okay, so now our next question coming out from, I believe, Nathan says, would you trade Deshaun Watson for Chris Godwin or Amon-Ra St. Brown? I mean, I think Deshaun Watson has it in the range of outcomes where he may very easily be a top 5 quarterback rest of season. Like, that's a possibility based off of what we've seen from Deshaun Watson and his NFL career in a situation that I would make the argument is worse than the Cleveland Browns and what you had with Houston Texans during that time period. But if you can get Amon-Ra St. Brown, hell yeah, we're going to do it. It's a two quarterback league. Never mind. 2 quarterback league. We have Burrow, Mike White at quarterback. Receivers are Jefferson, Kirk, and George Pickens. Honestly, in a 2 QB league, I think that you are going to have such a large upgrade from Mike White to Deshaun Watson that I would rather go ahead and I would rather keep Deshaun Watson here. Obviously, if it was a 1 quarterback format, we're going through and we're selling him for Amon-Ra St. Brown in a heartbeat. But in that 2 QB league, I think I kind of want him. Now, Jack coming out says, yo, Mason, should I trade Justin Fields, Christian Watson, and Cole Kmet for DK Metcalf and George Kittle? On my bench, we have Deshaun Watson. Also, where does Christian Watson rank rest of season? And is Deshaun Watson going to be a reliable quarterback going forward? Like I said, I think if we're looking at the range of outcomes for Deshaun Watson, it's entirely possible that he is a top 5 quarterback rest of season. It's not necessarily a guarantee, of course. Like, I can't guarantee that Deshaun Watson's going to give you as much production as you would have had from Justin Fields, but I think they'll be comparable considering the fact that obviously we have that Justin Fields injury. So if we're making this move, we're not getting that much of a downgrade at QB going over to Deshaun Watson. And if we are trading Christian Watson to DK Metcalf, I mean, I love Christian Watson. We have him in a ton of best ball leagues, but at the end of the day, he's not going to continue to have 1 touchdown for every 2 receptions. That's going to come back down to earth. That's what he's had over the past 3 weeks. So if we're going Christian Watson to DK Metcalf, that's a massive upgrade. If we're going from Cole Kmet to George Kittle, that's a massive upgrade. So I think we would go ahead and make this deal, my friend. But I can't sit here and guarantee you that Deshaun Watson's going to be more productive than Justin Fields has been. Now, Jim Malai, always happy to have you out, says 7-5 in a 12-team at PBR format. We have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Jalen Waddle, Saquon Barkley, Isaiah Pacheco, Hawkinson, Chase, and then on the bench, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Madison, Algier, Pirine. Should we trade Hurts and Godwin for Allen? Am I ready for the playoffs? Okay, so I think you're saying you already did this, right? You're telling us we have Allen on the team. Unless this is maybe Keenan Allen. No, I'm assuming you're reading this off as Josh Allen. I would be okay with the Jalen Hurts and Chris Godwin for Josh Allen deal, specifically because you have Stephon Diggs. Specifically because we're already pot committed to this Buffalo Bills offense, where if this team's going to go through and this team's going to have a shot to actually win your fantasy football championship, then hell, you probably need, the Buffalo Bills to be a top 3 offense in the NFL, or it's just simply not going to happen for you. So specifically because we have Stephon Diggs on the roster, I'm fine if you wanted to go through and double down and overpay for Josh Allen. But AJ says in a 10-team PPR format, should we drop Higbee for Foster Moreau, Cole Kmet, or Juwan Johnson? I would be fine if you wanted to drop Tyler Higbee for Foster Moreau. I will say Higbee, I believe, is 3rd in the NFL at the tight end position in targets right now. But the Los Angeles Rams just look like they potentially have the worst offense in the NFL at the moment. David says we're 9-3. We have Hurts, Saquon, Evans, Sutton, Everett, Hollywood, Pollard, Juju on the bench. I'm worried about Saquon and Evans. Should I move off of them? And if so, for who? I understand why you are worried about these players. Obviously, we had Saquon Barkley struggling this past week, given the fact that, hell, with Saquon Barkley, this is a running back that has so many offensive line injuries. Not only did he struggle this past week, but we've seen this before from Saquon Barkley. Really, it's been over the past month, not the past week. But if we are going to project these guys going forward, I think that you probably got to hold them. They're still getting volume. I still think that Saquon Barkley is going to be a top 12 running back rest of season. I think we had him ranked at running back 13 this week just because he does have that very tough matchup going up against Washington combined with the recent struggles. But I think that we kind of just sit on our hands as well with Mike Evans. The man had 9 targets this past week. Over the past 5, he's averaging about 10 targets a game. I understand he hasn't been phenomenal, and this week, honestly, we're going to rank him pretty damn low because he's going up against Marshawn Lattimore. The thing is, everybody's panicking with these players, my friend. It's not like you can go through and just easily sell them and get some elite level piece in return. Jonas says, yo, Mason, thoughts on trading Najee and Lazard for Amari with how things have unfolded in Pittsburgh? This entirely just comes down to the Najee Harris injury. Let me go through and see if there's anything that's come out over the past few hours that I maybe missed. Pull up the last report that we've had with Najee Harris on RotoWorld. Okay. Can't find anything there. Obviously, people were speculating on Twitter. I saw someone saying that they were potentially worried that it was a hernia, blah, blah, blah. Let me go ahead and just search Najee Harris's name into Twitter here. I can't see anything regarding Najee Harris. I think it's going to strictly come down to the injury. If Najee Harris is going to miss some time, then yeah, you probably got to go through. You probably need to take Amari Cooper with Deshaun Watson coming in. But if Najee Harris, were to just be good to go next week, we're trading Najee and Lazard for Amari. At that point, it would depend on your roster. But assuming that this Najee Harris injury lingers a bit, which at this point we don't have any information on, I think we maybe sit on our hands. Now, R. Gravy says, PBR with return yard points. Start to CPAT, Brian Robinson, DeAndre Swift. Happy PBR, Pickens, Latavius, or Donovan Peoples-Jones, my man. Thanks as usual. No, thank you for supporting the channel as always. So for our 2 running backs, I think we're going to go with the combo of Cordell Patterson and Brian Robinson, even in a full PPR format. I know that you had about 7 targets for DeAndre Swift this past week, but we cannot start DeAndre Swift until we see otherwise. With Cordell Patterson, we were saying that same thing. We were saying last week that you couldn't start Cordell Patterson until we were proven otherwise. And he did go out there and at least he had more snaps. Thank God. At least he had more snaps than Tyler Algier. So I think at this point, you can go through, you can start him. Obviously, you're going to have some reservations while doing so, but you can put him in your lineup. And then if we're going to be looking at Brian Robinson saw his career high in snap percentage this past week. It's very uncertain with, Antonio Gibson having the role 2 weeks ago, Brian Robinson this past week. I think if you had a bet on someone here, probably would be Brian Robinson. And then for other spot between Pickens, Latavius Murray, and Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think we're probably going to go Latavius Murray just because he's literally the only guy here to get touches. Like, obviously, the offense is horrendous, but volume is volume. Now, Curran says, 10-2, we got off for JT Deontay and Curtis Samuel. For my Jamal Higgins and Patriots defense, we'll have to start Jamar, Waddle, Godwin, and Olave, plus the Eagles defense. My trade deadline's tomorrow. Keep it up, Brody. No, thank you so much for supporting the channel, my friend. If you're trading away T. Higgins, keep in mind, you're going to get Jamar Chase back in this week. I think Higgins is going to take a small step down. If we have the Philadelphia Eagles defense, I don't really care too much about trading away the Pats. If we're picking up Jonathan Taylor here, I think you have to make the deal. You have Jamar Chase, Waddle, and Godwin, and Olave. You're fine at receiver. You're getting Jonathan Taylor. You're getting presumably a top 5 running back rest of season. Hell yes, my friend. I think we got to make it. Dicer, long time no see. Thank you, my man. Says, Amigo, help me set my lineup this week. PPR, Chase, Amari, Garrett Wilson, Juju, Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Pollard, Rashad White, Pacheco, Jeff Wilson. Maybe we can get off the waiver wire Zay Jones or Treylon Burks. If I had to pick up one of these guys off the waiver wire, I actually probably would be going ahead and prioritizing Treylon Burks for their rest of season upside. I'm not going to start Treylon Burks over any of these other names, though. I think for our 2 wide receivers, it's going to be very, very easy. We're going to go with the combo of Jamar Chase and Amari Cooper. Chase should be back this week. Great matchup against Kansas City. And Amari Cooper, should get Deshaun Watson in. And if we're going over to the running back position, this is where I think we can maybe have a little back and forth. I think you have to play Aaron Jones, but between Tony Pollard, Rashad White, Jeff Wilson, this is where we can have that real conversation. If you look at our rankings right now, I have Pollard 16, Rashad White 18, Jeff Wilson 21. Main reason Jeff Wilson's going to be so low is the horrible matchup he has going up against the 49ers. So I think we probably go ahead and just take Tony Pollard unless Leonard Fournette were to miss. If Fournette misses, then obviously we're going to go with Rashad White. And then for that flex spot, we're going to pivot back over to wide receiver. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to probably play Garrett Wilson here. So with Garrett Wilson, Mike White coming through, making him look like a phenomenal option. I think we go Garrett Wilson unless Justin Fields is back in. And if Justin Fields is back in and maybe the Chicago Bears offense can actually move the ball down the field, at that point, we would consider David Montgomery. It's just so hard with how bad Chicago looks. Now, real quick, we are 1 like away from hitting 100 likes in the live stream. Please, if you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on the stream. It does help us out a ton. And also, if you want to check out any of these player props this week, you can find the link to Underdog in the live chat, in the description, in the comment section. My favorite line's the Garrett Wilson 50.5 receiving yards with Mike White under center, of course. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar, $200. And you are going to get this a free Patrick Mahomes bet only for people who use promo code FLOCK. I'm sorry that I'm going to annoy you with this week. I just got to make sure you're taking advantage of this free money when I work so hard to get it for you. Now, our next question coming out from Iman says, Devontae Adams, Cam Akers for Ezekiel Elliott, Scary Terry, and Keenan Allen. Don't really care about Cam Akers here. I would just rather have Devontae Adams. Scary Terry, not even a top 24 wide receiver on a points per game basis. Zeke, obviously we still have Tony Pollard in Dallas. I think you got to go ahead and you got to get Devontae Adams. He is a locked and loaded top 5 receiver rest of season. Jacob says, is Mike Williams, Sutton, and Dalton Schultz fair for Amari Cooper? If you have another tight end and it's a shallow format where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, at that point, I'd be fine if you wanted to go ahead and get Amari here. Obviously, it's going to matter so much on your roster and your league format. Trevor says, 6-point passing touchdown league. Are we going to roll with Lamar or Herbert rest of season / playoffs? 6-point passing touchdown league is going to be a little bit closer whenever you do have Rashad Bateman obviously out rest of season. Lamar's looked bad with no Bateman. And on top of this, you will eventually get Mike Williams back in. So I think it's close-ish in a 6-point passing touchdown league. Can we ask the live chat? We have 300 people out here in this live stream. Can everybody please spam the chat and let me know what you're doing? Are you going with Justin Herbert for the fantasy football playoffs in that 6-point passing touchdown format, or Lamar Jackson? Are you going Herbert or Lamar? Please let me know in the live chat. Bodie says, panic on Fields, ? Yeah, we had a video about that yesterday where we talked about that really in depth. You're saying, should we trade T. Higgins, our wide receiver 3, for Justin Herbert? If it's a league where you only start 2 wide receivers in a flex and you are very worried about Justin Fields, I'd be okay with it. It's a fair price. Looks like most people in the chat are preferring Herbert in that 6-point passing touchdown format. Maybe if it was 4 points per passing touchdown, then you can pivot over and go Lamar given the rushing upside. It's close. Lopez says, hey, Mason, when you trade Hopkins for Saquon, I think it is a very fair deal in knowing that you have an absolute loaded roster, my friend. I'd be okay with it. Knowing that you have so much wide receiver depth, if I'm remembering your team correctly. Ant says, Godwin and Sutton for Tua Tagovailoa. Quarterback is Dak Prescott. Other receivers are Lamb, Keenan, Pittman, Gabriel Davis, Mike White, and Trevor Lawrence on the waiver wire as well. So going from, say, Dak Prescott to Tua Tagovailoa is obviously an upgrade. Without Dak Prescott, just hasn't had to throw the ball with how good this Dallas Cowboys defense is. But we're pivoting down from Godwin to Michael Pittman Jr. Like, that's the clear starting lineup adjustment we'd have to make with this deal. I think it's worth it. I don't want to care about Sutton. Sutton's like your wide receiver 6 on this team. So it's, should we downgrade from Godwin to Pittman to upgrade from Dak to Tua? Given the wide receiver depth that you have on this roster, I'd be okay with it. I would definitely try to get a better quarterback, though. I will say Tua has a pretty difficult playoff schedule. Now, Jack says, also, would you rather have Fields or Deshaun Watson rest of season? If we knew Justin Fields was fully healthy, I think you go Justin Fields relatively easily based off the rushing upside we had from Justin Fields whenever we saw him over the past 3 weeks. If we're going to go ahead and pull up what we've had with Justin Fields in terms of the most recent injury report, can't find anything on RotoWorld. Underdog's Twitter actually does a pretty damn good job. Not the main Twitter, but the Underdog NFL with all the injury alerts. Like, I used to go to RotoWorld to find this stuff, but honestly, I found myself just searching Underdog NFL more and more. I don't see anything from them, and usually they put out literally anything that happens on here regarding a Justin Fields update. If it's a 4-point passing touchdown format, I think based off what we saw with the rushing upside of Justin Fields, we still got to take Fields. Dynasty, I go to Deshaun Watson easily. V27K says, hey, Mason, what do you think? Should I sell high on Rashad White? Someone offered me Treylon Burks for White. Hell to the no. I also have a trade of Kenneth Walker and Antonio Gibson for James Conner and Hollywood Brown. Should I make both deals? Okay. I would say the second one is intriguing. If you look at the usage of James Conner, where he's literally seeing like 63 out of 65 snaps potential every single week in Arizona, like there's a small list of running backs that are able to see that kind of snap rate in today's NFL. And that small list of running backs includes James Conner, and then that's it. Like, James Conner's like the only guy that's actually getting there. I would say I'm okay with it if we are just looking for the fantasy football playoffs. If it's Kenneth Walker and Michael Carter for James Conner and Hollywood Brown, if you needed that wide receiver. But keep in mind, both of these players are on bye this week. So this is essentially only a move for the fantasy football playoffs. If you're not locked into the playoffs by now, I don't think you should be making this trade. And regarding selling Rachaad White, I think it's a decent idea. I mean, obviously, we had Tony Pollard as that sell-high candidate for us whenever you had Ezekiel Elliott injured, just knowing that the Dallas Cowboys were going to be bringing Ezekiel Elliott back in, and Zeke was going to be given a role regardless of how good Tony Pollard looked. I think it's a similar situation in Tampa with Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette. So I wouldn't mind if you wanted to go through and sell high on Rachaad White, but at the same time, I would say you need to ask for significantly, and I repeat, significantly more than just Treylon Burks. Now, David coming out again says, I got offered Saquon for Hopkins and his Gus Edwards. Take it. Full BBR also could get Connor and Ayuk for Saquon Barkley. Which trade is better? Very, very weak at wide receiver. If you are extremely weak at wide receiver, and we are a lock for the fantasy football playoffs, because keep in mind, if you're 6-7, if you're 7-6, if you're fighting for that playoff spot right now, you shouldn't be trading for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, if you have 3 weeks left of your regular season, Hopkins misses one of those. He's missing 33%. It's a tough spot to be in. I would say it's probably a deal where we can ask for a little bit more. I would look for possibly a better running back than Gus Edwards. In a full BBR format, I really view Gus Edwards as someone that has absolutely no value whatsoever, because even when J.K. Dobbins is injured, Gus Edwards is in a 3-man running back by committee where he doesn't catch passes. So if we could pivot from Gus Edwards to just a slightly better running back, I know we're not going to be getting back like James Conner, but just a slightly better RB, I think we could be more intrigued with it. Now, Aristotle Enjoyer says, Pickens, Juju, or Treylon Burks, pick 2 rest of seasons. Thank you. No, thank you so much for supporting the channel. We are going to go Pickens and Juju Smith-Schuster. With Juju, I mean, I had him as a sell-high guy a while ago, but I think he is actually probably a better option than he previously was, knowing that you have both Mecole Hardman and Kadarius Toney injured. So I'm actually a little more excited about Juju. Ian says, got sent Allen and Olave for A.J. Brown and Trevor Lawrence. If this is Josh Allen, hell yes, my friend. Trying to work in Terry for his Pittman. On top of that, what are your thoughts on the deal? Deadline's tomorrow. I mean, I don't even see why you're trying to get Terry McLaurin for Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's better than Terry McLaurin in fantasy. Coming from someone who spent the entire offseason screaming that Matt Ryan wasn't good and Michael Pittman was one of the most overrated players in fantasy alongside Cortland Sutton and Mike Williams. I got to stick up for Michael Pittman here. He's better than Terry McLaurin at this point. Maybe not from a real life perspective, blah, 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 but from a fantasy football perspective, it's true. Like if we go through and look at the raw points per game that we've had so far this season, I mean, keep in mind, Michael Pittman had to play some of these games with Sam Ehlinger. Keep in mind, you actually had Terry McLaurin playing a large chunk of the season with Jahan Dotson injured, with Logan Thomas injured. And if we're looking at where these wide receivers sit at this moment, I mean, you have Michael Pittman, how many spots ahead of Terry McLaurin from a points per game perspective? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Terry McLaurin is 10 spots behind Michael Pittman. Terry McLaurin's not even a top 24 wide receiver. I think you do the deal without Scary Terry, my friend. David says, a full BBR, 10-team league. We're 6-5 in 4th place. Would you trade Jamal Williams and Christian Watson for Jalen Waddle and James Robinson? Hell to the yes. I want to keep on rooting for our best ball guy in Christian Watson. Like, I thought Christian Watson wasn't giving us anything this year, and I'm super excited that he is actually producing as of late. But full transparency, I think we've gotten very lucky with Christian Watson as of late. Like, I mean, if you are looking at Christian Watson here, if we're going to be fair, the man has averaged a touchdown every 2 receptions over the past 3 weeks. He has 8 receptions and 4 touchdowns. That is in no way sustainable. In no way can we assume that that's going to happen going forward. I would love for it to. Trust me, I would. But it's sadly most likely not going to. For that reason, I think you take Jalen Waddle and you run, my friend. I think you run with Waddle here. Now, next question coming out from Nick says, traded for Pat Frymuth and Michael Carter for Hayden Hurst and David Montgomery. So essentially we gave up a David Montgomery for Pat Frymuth. Overpaid, but my roster is very deep. Three top 8 running backs, 3 top 8 wide receivers. Delvin Pitts all year was looking for stability going into the playoffs. What are your thoughts? I'm fine with it. Like, if you're looking at the production we've had from Pat Frymuth so far this season, let me go ahead and pull up the game log because it's been a tight end that was a borderline top 5 option before the Chase Claypool trade. And the man, has been very consistent for you. This past week, obviously was a down performance against the Colts. Only 4 targets, 3 receptions, and 39 receiving yards. But the week before that, 12 targets, 79 receiving yards. The week before that, 7 targets. The week before that, 7 targets. The week before that, 9 targets. Like, Frymuth's been that consistent tight end. So if you were never going to start Montgomery anyway, I'm fine with it. James says, full PPR must win the next 2 weeks. Should we trade Hurts and Mixon for Nick Chubb, Dak, and the Browns defense? No. Full PPR Mixon to Chubb, lateral move. Hurts to Dak, massive downgrade. The only way we do this is if Joe Mixon is confirmed out. If Joe Mixon is confirmed out for the next 2 weeks, and you're looking at me saying, Mason, you know what? I have no option but to downgrade. I need someone to play right now, then sure. But no, I don't see why we do that. Andrew coming out says, in playoffs, 12-team PPR format, Mahomes, Sanders, Fournette, Chase, St. Brown, Schultz, Waddle, Watson, Brian Robinson, Deontay on the bench. Could get Eckler for Miles Sanders and Waddle through trade. Should we do it? Yes or no? Okay, so we're in the playoffs. We're just thinking that long-term upside. Waddle right now is our wide receiver 2, 3, based on how you rank him on Ross St. Brown. We obviously have some depth at wide receiver here. If this was a league where you only started 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex, where we are incentivized to, instead of focusing in on depth, to just go and get the highest ceiling possible, to go and just get the best option you can, I'd be fine getting Eckler here. With Austin Eckler, he is the running back 1 overall in fantasy at the moment. Obviously, that's for a full PPR format, of course, where Austin Eckler, just has been very good and very consistent with the target volume he's seen. So it's a fair deal. I don't want to say it's like the best trade in the world, but if it's a league where you only start 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a flex, I'm okay with it because we just want the top end stud. James says we just answered that one. Our next question coming out from, I believe, Roy, who says, Hurts, Eckler, Henry, Higgins, Amon-Ra, Kelsey, Dillon, White, Pacheco, Watson, Burks, Garrett Wilson, and Pirine. Trade the deadline tomorrow. Any trades or sit on my hands? Thanks for what you do. No, thank you so much for supporting the channel, my man. We're sitting literally with 2 top 3 running backs. We're sitting with the top 3 quarterback. We are sitting with 2 wide receiver 1s. We're sitting with the tight end 1 overall. You sit on your hands. You are in a phenomenal spot that, in my opinion, the only thing that we should be focusing in on is churning the waiver wire, trying to find depth, trying to go get guys that you've already been picking up. Picking up the Isaiah Pacheco, picking up the Garrett Wilson, picking up the Treylon Burks, picking up these rookies like Rashad White. All these rookies that have upside to turn into that league-winning player for your flex spot. Love the team. Love what you're doing. I think you sit on your hands, my friend. Colin says, start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. We have JT, Saquon, Kenneth Walker, Amon-Ra, Keenan, Garrett Wilson, or Christian Watson. Also start Lamar or Deshaun. We're going to go Lamar Jackson over Deshaun Watson definitely this week. We're going to reevaluate when we actually see Deshaun Watson. Our 2 running backs are going to be, I love these guys, JT and Kenneth Walker. I will start Kenneth Walker over Saquon this week with all the injuries you have for the New York Giants, where they're actually dogs against the Washington Commanders right now. Obviously, the Commanders rolling with a great defense. And then at receiver, we're going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen in there. And then we will go back to the running back position and jam Saquon Barkley in that flex spot. Now, full transparency though, Kenneth Walker playing on the West Coast. So Kenneth Walker going to be playing later in the day compared to Saquon Barkley. So honestly, just in case anything last minute happens, I would flip Kenneth Walker and Saquon Barkley in terms of who we're putting at the flex and who we're starting early on Sunday. But that's just in case we have like a last minute emergency. And real quick, we are 1 like away from hitting 200 likes in the live stream. I'm going to show you how to do this real quick, ladies and gentlemen. First off, dear God, look at that sweet little angel. Oh, beautiful. But let me go ahead. Let's pull up our YouTube account so I can show you how it's done here, ladies and gentlemen. You are going to click on this video, which you've already done. You already made that great decision. But then after that, you need to go through and hit that little thumbs up. It's going to do a little dancing emotion. Like, just trust me, really cool. I think you want to go through. I think you want to check that out. Now, Haji says, a full PPR, need to win 1 of the last 2 games to make the playoffs. Who should I start? We got 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a flex. JT Walker, we're starting both those guys. Rashad White, David Montgomery, receiver. CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, Christian Watson, Mike Evans, Hollywood Brown on bye. Our 3 wide receivers are going to be Lamb, Amon-Ra, and Mike Evans. Yes, I know Evans going up against Lattimore. Yes, I know Christian Watson has been on fire. And then for that flex spot, if Justin Fields is back, I potentially will revisit this. But for the time being, we plan on Rashad White. If Justin Fields makes his way back in and you're very confident about the Chicago Bears offense at that point and you really want to pivot over to David Montgomery, Leonard Fournette's 100% good to go, then we do it. But I think we plan for White at the moment. Now, Maui Boy says, drop Carr for Isaiah McKenzie or Jalen Warren. Carr is my backup. I mean, I'm never a fan of having a backup quarterback. I mean, if it's going to be a player like Derek Carr, where it's essentially just equivalent to going through and picking someone up off the waiver wire and looking for the matchup. Now, let me see the latest report that we have with Jalen Warren. Obviously, the issue is if Jalen Warren's not going to play anytime soon, this is not necessarily going to help us out. But if Jalen Warren could potentially sneak himself in back this week and we have the Najee Harris injury, then could be appealing. What's crappy is we're just not going to get any clarity because they played on Monday night. So if we get the clarity, say, tomorrow that Jalen Warren looks like he's going to be back and Najee Harris is going to be out, at that point, yes, I would drop Derek Carr and we would go get Jalen Warren. But I think we need to have that injury clarity before we do anything. Now, 20 coming out. Thank you, my friend. Says, how's it going, Mace? Should we start Lawrence versus the Lions or Watson versus the Texans this week? I have an important game for the playoff seeding this week. So if you're looking at what Las Vegas totals are telling us, I mean, right now, Vegas has the Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars game as the 2nd highest scoring game of the week, only behind the Cincinnati Bengals and Kansas City Chiefs. Like, there's supposed to be a lot of points scored in this contest between the Detroit Lions and the Jags. I would still plan on Deshaun Watson, my friend. Let me see if Underdog's updated any lines here regarding Deshaun Watson. Kind of want to see what their projections would be. Yeah, I'm assuming we don't get any Cleveland lines until later in the week. The only thing we have right now is Chubb. I would go Deshaun Watson over Trevor Lawrence, despite Lawrence having just the best matchup imaginable. Now, Jordan says, 9-3 in a 10-team PPR format, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a flex. Who do we play between Dalvin, Kamara, Stevenson, Pittman, Kirk, Ayuk, Christian Watson, and George Pickens? Thanks as always. Appreciate it. Thank you, my friend, for supporting the channel. Our 2 running backs are going to be Dalvin Cook and Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson with no Damian Harris should be an easy option to get in that starting lineup. Kamara does have a tougher matchup, so we will be putting him behind those 2 RBs. Receiver, we're going to go with the combo of Christian Kirk as well as Michael Pittman. And then for that flex spot, we'll go back to the running back position. We'll take Alvin Kamara in the full PPR format. I apologize for telling everybody to play Alvin Kamara last week against a very tough 49ers defense. I know the Bucs have a good run D, but it's not the same caliber as what you're looking at with the 49ers. I don't think we have to be that concerned with it. Okay. So now our next question coming out, I believe, from AJ. Thank you. Says, in a standard PPR format, start at the flex, Jamal, Dameon Pierce, or Rashad White. I am currently in a PPR format going to plan on Rashad White on Monday night. Also, pick 1 receiver, Devonta Smith, Treylon Burks, George Pickens, or Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to take Devonta Smith. I know with Smith, I mean, this past week, he didn't have some blow-up type game. I mean, hell, the Philadelphia Eagles just simply did not have to throw the ball. The Eagles went through and ran the ball to score 40 points on the Green Bay Packers. Like, I think they probably have to throw it just a tad bit more here. And obviously, I mean, it's a good spot with the Dallas Goedert injury and the target share we've had from Devonta Smith. Now, dude coming out says, in a full PPR league, start 3, Waddle, Chase, A.J. Brown, or Amari Cooper. We're going to go Waddle, Jamar Chase, and A.J. Brown. Now, I know Amari Cooper, good matchup on paper against the Houston Texans. Obviously, you're getting Deshaun Watson his first week back in. And trust me, y'all know we've been talking about the upside of Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson can turn into that top 5 quarterback. It's no guarantee, however, so I would rather sit on our hands, wait to see how it plays out this week, and then we make that call of possibly starting Amari Cooper over someone like A.J. Brown going forward. But I'm not doing it right now. Now, our next question coming out from J-Max says, should I trade Chubb or CMC, Kenneth Walker, and Devonta Smith for Kamara, Lamb, and Amari? So going from Devonta Smith to Devonta Smith to Amari Cooper, clear upgrade. Kenneth Walker to CeeDee Lamb, fair move depending on your roster. Going from CMC to Alvin Kamara, clear downgrade. We have CMC, Chubb, Walker, White, Deshaun Watson, Amon-Ra, Pickens, Devonta Smith, Burks, Kelsey. So I understand why you'd want to do this. Obviously, we have a bigger hole at wide receiver than we do running back. At the same time, we have Deshaun Watson, so we would just get that natural stack for that Cleveland Browns offense. Oh my gosh. I would say we probably want to go through and keep the side that we have. I really like the idea behind it. I think we're just giving up a tad bit too much. I like the idea behind it. I think we're just giving up a little bit too much here, my friend. Now, Jero says, Mason, go. What do you think of Rachaad White rest of season? Is he an RB2 in a PPR format? Full PPR format, I think Rachaad White can be a running back too. Like, if you're looking at our rankings with where we put Rachaad White this week, I put Rachaad White at running back 18. So that's exactly a mid RB2. I do think that's very frustrating that even if we don't want Leonard Fournette to steal these touches from Rachaad White down the stretch, probably going to happen. Now, Ernest says, should I trade away any of these 3 players? Kenneth Walker, bad rushing output over the past couple weeks. And yeah, even with him being bad, he gets you 2 rushing touchdowns last week and is just fine. David Montgomery, bad offense. CeeDee Lamb, and a run-heavy offense. I would hold on to Kenneth Walker. I mean, with David Montgomery, I am way more concerned than I was. Y'all know we previously said he was a skyrocketing running back with this value once he had the Khalil Herbert injury, but now you're getting Darrington Evans involved, and obviously the offense is just cratered. CeeDee Lamb's actually been pretty damn good over the past month or so. I mean, essentially since you had Dak Prescott in, Lamb has taken a massive step forward. So honestly, I hold those players, my friend. Now, next question coming out from Trevor says 9-3 record in a Dynasty 1 quarterback 6-point per passing touchdown format. Trade Lamar and Christian Kirk for Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, and Jamal Williams. Dynasty, give me Herbert easily over Lamar, but it's a 1 quarterback league, so it's not like the biggest deal in the world. Keenan versus Christian Kirk. Give me Christian Kirk pretty easily in a Dynasty format. Kirk was drafted in 2018. He did only stay 3 years at Texas A&M, so he's a little younger. Very fair deal in that 6-point passing touchdown league. I'm probably going to go ahead and take Justin Herbert here in Dynasty. Now, C-Dog says, thoughts? I get Amon-Ra and give Pittman and Deshaun Watson. In a 1 quarterback format, if you have another elite level QB, if you have someone like Josh Allen, I'm fine with it. But you have to have that other viable quarterback. Connor says, hey, Mason, must-win week for me. Who should I flex? Debo, Davis, Burks, Sanders, or White? Also, who do I go with that quarterback between Lamar, Fields, or Watson? Love the content. Thank you so much, my friend. Probably going to be avoiding Justin Fields this week where we can start someone like Lamar Jackson instead. I think you do have some inherent risk when it comes to Justin Fields coming back from the shoulder, and that with Justin Fields here, I mean, hell, if he is too injured to just run the ball every drop back, I think we should be a little concerned. And if we're going to be looking at Deshaun Watson, I think he can be that long-term option for us. But no, we're easily just going to go ahead. We're going to take Lamar Jackson this week. There's way less uncertainty, and we can reevaluate next. Now, Torrin says, in a 10-team full PPR format, would you trade Olave and Etienne for Wilson and Pierce? Hell to the no. I'd rather have Chris Olave over Garrett Wilson still. I would much prefer Travis Etienne over Dameon Pierce. Current running backs are Henry, Walker, White. Receivers are St. Brown, Higgins, Wilson, Hollywood, Sutton, Palmer, Andrews, tight end. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the Olave and Travis Etienne side there, my friend. Thune coming out with a massive donation. Thank you. Says, massive trade in a 10-team full BBR format. Team is Brady, McCaffrey, Swift, A.J. Brown, Hopkins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kelsey, with the bench being Christian Watson, Deshaun Watson, Jamal, Mike Williams, Hollywood, Rashad, and Cortland Sutton. We trade AJ and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So we trade a couple wide receiver ones here. Cortland Sutton and Christian Watson. So some low-end wide receiver depth for Travis Etienne and Justin Jefferson. So if we go through and make this deal, our wide receiver core, instead of starting DeAndre Hopkins and then Amon-Ra St. Brown with A.J. Brown in the flex every week, we're starting Justin Jefferson and DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver every week. And then at running back, instead of starting McCaffrey and Swift, we're going McCaffrey and Travis Etienne. If this is that 10-team format where you only have to start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, if it is a 10-team league where you only start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, where depth doesn't really matter that much, where Christian Watson, where Cortland Sutton are just never going to get in your starting lineup here, I think we go ahead and pull the trigger. Now, Peppa Pig says, hey, Mason, need a lineup. Deshaun Watson, Mike White, Kyler Murray on bye. We're going to go with Deshaun Watson, drop Mike White if we have Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray on the roster. Barkley, Henry, Etienne, Knight, Latavius, Waddle, Godwin, Garrett Wilson, Lazard, tight ends, David Njoku. Thank you. No, thank you so much for supporting the channel, my friend. We're going to go Deshaun Watson, quarterback. Running back, we're going to go with Henry and Etienne. Wide receiver, we're going to go Waddle and Godwin. And then at the flex spot, we're going to pivot over to Saquon Barkley, even if Barkley does have a tough matchup going up against Washington, and obviously his offense is cratering here. Now, Yoni says, in a 12-team full BBR format, 7-5, rate the team. We have Watson, Jefferson, and Higgins at receiver. Interesting that we list Christian Watson before Justin Jefferson, my friend. CMC and Connor at running back, and Njoku at tight end, Olave, Wilson, Pittman as flex options. I really like the team. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is Deshaun Watson and then those receivers. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Actually, if that's the case, I love the team. I really do like the team. I think if we're going to be getting that elite level quarterback coming in, and James Conner has been operating as, a bell cow running back in Arizona. Obviously, he didn't give us much earlier on this season. But I think you should be excited now. I think you should be excited now that we have these guys back in. Now, our next question coming out from, I believe, Nick says, Pat Frymuth for David Montgomery trade earlier. The current roster is Eckler, Saquon, Kamara, White, Patterson. Receivers are Hopkins, Amon-Ra, Lamb, Amari, Williams. Okay, yeah, so if we're looking at this, you were never starting David Montgomery anyway. I do like the move, my friend. Thoughts for rest of season? Love the videos. And thank you so much for supporting the channel, my friend. Assuming that you are past your trade deadline, there are too many moves we can make. The only thing I'd say is even if, we weren't past our trade deadline, if we could make a trade, if we could sell like Rashad White and CeeDee Lamb and go get to like a truly top 3 level receiver, go get to like Tyreek Hill, we do it. But it's just because you have such a loaded roster. What the hell are we supposed to do? Now, I forgot this part of Connor's question. Who should we flex? Debo, Davis, Burks, Sanders, or Rashad White? Full BBR format, I think that we probably go with either Miles Sanders, Rashad White, or Debo Samuel. Really sitting here thinking about this. Full BBR format, let's go Debo, just using the tie break. I go with any 3 of those guys. Maybe I'd play Debo just because he's playing the Miami Dolphins, and I really want to watch that game and have something to root for. Now, our next question coming out from Isaac says, teams loaded but could upgrade a quarterback where we have Kirk Cousins and Jimmy G. Is David Montgomery and Garrett Wilson on my bench enough to get Mahomes in a trade? Hell no, it's not. You can try for it. If you can pull it off, that's phenomenal. I would go ahead and offer that team also your quarterbacks. Go, hey man, not only will I give you David Montgomery and Garrett Wilson for Patrick Mahomes, I'll throw in Christian Kirk. I'll throw in Jimmy Garoppolo. But Alberto says trade Kamara for James Conner in a 10-team full PPR format. Yes, sir, I think you will. I mean, assuming that you are good to go for the fantasy football playoffs. I mean, if you're good to go for the playoffs, James Conner is that 3-down bell cow. We've been talking about this. 63 out of like 65 potential snaps played. But the issue is, if you are currently like 6 and 7 with Conner on bye, would be a little bit more difficult to give up a player for this week. Now, Ant Carter out again says 8 and 3 in a half PPR format. 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 flex. Trade Godwin and Sutton or Keenan Allen and Pierce for Tua Tagovailoa. Quarterbacks, Dak. Wide receivers are Lamb, Pittman, Gabe Davis. Running backs are Henry, Walker, Etienne, and Rachaad White. Okay. If we had to start 2 flexes here, a little less excited about it if we had to start 2 flexes. So if we make this move, we're going to be starting Lamb, Pittman at receiver, Henry, Walker, running back, Etienne at the flex. I think we could shoot for a higher quarterback. If I had to pick one of these packages to sell, we would sell the Godwin and Sutton side. I still think we can shoot for a higher quarterback. Bingwin says Swift or White rest of season, a lock for the playoffs. I'm going to ask everybody in the live chat right now because I, at some point, just have to throw in the towel on DeAndre Swift, right? At some point, we just have to say it ain't happening. Can everybody please spam the chat? Who would you rather have rest of season? Would you rather have DeAndre Swift or Rachaad White rest of season? Please, everybody spam the chat. Let me know, who are you going with? Are you going with Rachaad White or DeAndre Swift? I'm super interested to hear your opinion on this one. Okay, let's see what people are saying. White, Swift, White, Swift, White, Swift, 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 White. Looks like most people are going ahead and taking Rachaad White. It's tough. It is tough. Now, Alexander says, any excitement with Claypool in Dynasty? None. Currently have a terrible wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 is Sutton and Burks from injuries. 10 and 2, love the Dynasty content. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, my friend. And I mean, with Chase Claypool, the only way you can be excited about him in Dynasty is if he gets a different quarterback. And I know people are going to hate me for saying that. And yes, I have been way too low on Justin Fields in the past, and I'll be the first person to admit that. But I've been too low on Justin Fields from a fantasy football standpoint. From a real life passing volume standpoint, Justin Fields had 1 game this season with over 200 passing yards, and it was 208. There's just no passing volume to be had whatsoever. I repeat, no passing volume whatsoever here. So I don't think there's much excitement with Chase Claypool because, I mean, all the Justin Fields truthers will tell you, oh, the issue with Justin Fields and why he doesn't have any passing volume is they need a wide receiver. We're going to go draft Jackson Smith and Jigba. They all tell you that they're going to draft a wide receiver and that's going to fix this issue. Hell, if that fixed the issue and that gets us some passing volume here, it's just going to be taken away from what you're getting with Chase Claypool. Now, Adam says, we have Dak and Deshaun. My receivers are Lamb, DK, Sutton, Pickens, Tony. Set at running back where we have Eckler, Etienne, Pacheco. Is Dak for Hollywood fair or smart? He has Russell Wilson. Bringing in Hollywood, he would be a play at the flex spot for us. It's a fair deal, and I'm okay with it. If you are willing to buy into Deshaun Watson, if you're willing to buy into the fact you think Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback rest of season, or you'd rather have Deshaun over Dak, I think you can go ahead and pull the trigger. I would rather wait a week if we could, but I'm assuming that your deadline's coming up. Now, Sawyer says 6 and 6 must win. Have BBR format. Need a running back 2/flex between Rachaad White, Garrett Wilson, Brian Robinson, Jameson. And also, are you starting Geno or Watson? I'm going to take Deshaun Watson. I think that the Seahawks are just going to run the ball against the Rams. And then if we're going to be looking at the running back in the flex, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to take Rachaad White over Brian Robinson. And then for that flex spot, we're going to go Garrett Wilson over Brian Robinson and Jameson Williams with Mike White under center. as well as the fact that, hell, I mean, just Garrett Wilson looks pretty damn good. It looks pretty damn good. Now, to the max coming out. Thank you, my friend. Says 12-team full PPR. I'm 10-2. The team is Herbert, CMC, Gibson, Higgins, Godwin, Kirk, Andrews. And then on the bench, we have Watson, Foreman, Elijah Mitchell, DeAndre Swift, Burks, Curtis Samuel. Should we drop Curtis Samuel? The waiver wires, we have Knight, Hasty, Zay Jones. Thanks, Mason. No, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I would go ahead. I would drop Curtis. I'm not going to be picking up any of those running backs, to be honest. If this is our running back core as is, I mean, you're already starting CMC. Actually, no, maybe we do go pick up a running back. I would drop Curtis Samuel and pick up Zay Jones before anything. The issue with the running backs off the waiver wire this week is there's just so much uncertainty. Like, I wouldn't be that surprised if after being inactive this past week, James Robinson ends up being the guy for the Jets. Like, that wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world here. Yeah, Zay Jones was so good this past week. I'm pretty sure Zay Jones had like 14 targets. Also has a phenomenal matchup against Detroit. Now, our next question coming out from, I believe, Jono says, he offered to throw in Isaiah Pacheco as well in the Najee trade. So Pacheco and Amari for Najee and Lazard, 9-3, 10-team double flex spot. Okay, first off, Jonah, thank you for being a long-time member of the flock, my man. Second off, going back to where you're saying it's a very close trade, and I think it does come down to the health of Najee Harris, which at this point, I don't have any information to act on. I am fine with the deal to go get Amari Cooper. If you think Amari turns into that true elite level wide receiver, Deshaun Watson in here, I am fine pulling the trigger on that. Tony says, which two running backs do we start? We have Cordell Patterson, Rashad White, Jeff Wilson, and Isaiah Pacheco. I'm going to go with Rashad White and Jeff Wilson. Now, keep in mind, I told people to start Alvin Kamara last week against the 49ers, and then the Saints proceeded to score 0 points against a phenomenal 49ers defense, and Jeff Wilson plays them this week. It is a revenge game for Jeff Wilson, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you don't like the matchup, but you do like how good this offense is. And not only how good this offense is, but at the same time, Jeff Wilson's getting pretty much every touch out of this backfield. I know it didn't happen this past week, but that was because we just had the full-blown blowout. Now, LeBronosaurus Rex says, Hawk and Sutton for Andrews. I'm going to take Andrews there easily, my friend. Torrance says, sounds like I need to accept. I'd be getting Olave and Etienne. Okay, if you're getting that side, you take it, my friend. If you're getting that side, you take it. 6-6, need a win. Thanks for everything, Mason. No, thank you so much for supporting the channel, my friend. Hersey says, start 2. Watson, Sutton, Johnson, Wilson, Dillon, and Hunt. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Christian Watson and Garrett Wilson. We'll take the rookies here. I will say, lower your expectations with Christian Watson. He's not going to continue to score a touchdown on 50% of his receptions. Zeke says, non-PPR flex, pick 2 out of Burks, Swift, Latavius, Lazard, Jeff Wilson, or Amir Abdullah if Jacobs is out. Jacobs not going to be out. Also, Carter or Christian Watson's return yards counted. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Christian Watson there. And then in that non-PPR format, Swift not intriguing in the slightest. I think you have to lock in Jeff Wilson Jr., and then in a non-PPR format, I wouldn't mind if you wanted to go Latavius Murray as well. Obviously, Denver does look very bad, though. Now, Max says, Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson rest of season. You got to go Lamar Jackson, until we see otherwise. Nick says, trade Pollard for Stevenson. Also, love the videos. Thank you, my friend. We would trade Pollard for Ramondre Stevenson with the Damian Harris injury, especially. Shavi says, 1 quarterback, Fields, Watson, or Tua. 4-point passing touchdown format with the rushing upside of Justin Fields. We probably would go in his direction, but obviously it's going to come down to your appetite for risk and your assessment on the shoulder injury, because the shoulder injury isn't something that you can just completely ignore here for Justin Fields. I think it's going to be very important, because if he doesn't run the ball as much as you're used to, hell, it's going to be a world of pain. Now, Scott says, running backs are Harris, Pacheco, Foreman. Receivers are Chase, Kirk, Davis, Pickens, Garrett Wilson, Hollywood, Donovan Peoples-Jones. So we have all the wide receiver depth in the world. Want to trade with the team that has Montgomery, Kamara, Pierce, who needs a receiver? What's the best trade offer in a non-PPR format? Ooh. was going to say, let's go for Kamara. Kamara's going to be coming at a severe discount. And in a full PPR league, Alvin Kamara, in my opinion, is a quality trade target right now. But non-PPR, I wouldn't be too interested in it. If you could go like Najee Harris and then one of your super deep wide receivers, like Najee Harris and Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's like your wide receiver 7 here, and just go get someone that's healthy, go get any of these trio guys, I think we go ahead and do it. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco and Deontay Foreman are probably going to be players I'm looking to see what kind of value we could get in a full PPR league. But in a non-PPR league, this is actually kind of where I think we are going to be trying to hold on to them. I think we probably hold on to those guys in non-PPR. Now, our next question coming out from Adam says, in a 12-team PPR 5-player keeper league, quarterback, we have Dak and Deshaun Watson. Receiver, we have Lamb, DK, Sutton, Pickens, Tony. Running back, we have Eckler, Etienne, Pacheco. Tight end, we have George Kittle. Any moves that you would make for the playoffs while staying competitive next year feel okay, though? Okay, so real quick, 5-player keeper league. I think after you have a lot of experience in both Dynasty and Keeper, you realize that if you're playing in a league where you only keep 5 or fewer players, you're much better off just treating it like it's a redraft league. I mean, we can remember that it's a Keeper league when we're making tiebreakers and deals. I just kind of want to treat it as a redraft league, if I'm going to be honest with you. If you were wanting to go ahead and make a move to improve for the fantasy football playoffs, I think the trade would be to try to go through and take advantage of someone that's viewing it as that keeper league and go, hey, man, I'll give you Isaiah Pacheco, rookie starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, where in reality, I don't think Pacheco's like super valuable next year. I don't even know if you would keep him in a 5-player keeper. If we could go Pacheco and Courtland Sutton to get a wide receiver upgrade for that flex spot or a running back upgrade for the flex, I think that's the move we're looking to make. And Ben says start Singletary or Burks in the flex. Thank you, Ben. Tough matchup for Singletary, but I think we probably will take him. Hearsay says, sorry, Jeff Wilson was my last message. We need a wide receiver in a flex. Okay, I'm sorry about that, my friend. So at the flex spot, we're going to go ahead. We're going to be taking Jeff Wilson, and the wide receiver, we're going to be going ahead and we're going to be taking Christian Watson. So actually our answer does not change at all, my friend. We're still going to go with Wilson and Watson. Devin says we have Derrick Henry, Kirk is wide receiver 1. Should we trade Saquon Barkley for Jamar Chase in a full PPR format? If Christian Kirk's your wide receiver 1, yes. Let's go ahead and let's pull the trigger, my friend. I really do think you get Jamar Chase back this week. Now, what you doing says locked in for the playoffs. Are we trading CeeDee Lamb for Jamar Chase? Yes, sir. I am going to go through. I'm going to trade CeeDee Lamb for Jamar Chase. Obviously, a little nerve-wracking when we haven't had Chase in quite some time, but at the end of the day, Jamar Chase is still Jamar Chase. I think that's all there is to that. But, of course, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for being a member of the flock. If you enjoyed this live stream, go down there, drop a like, please. Drop a like. I'm going to leave this up as a video later on, so it actually does matter if you go through and hit that like button for us right now. I think that should be it. Of course, if you want to check out any of these props, you can find the link to Underdog in the live chat in the description. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And only with promo code FLOCK are you going to get this a free Patrick Mahomes a bet. That's only promo code FLOCK. But last question, Adam says, in that 5-player keeper league, what kind of value can we get for a package of Pacheco and Courtland Sutton? If we can go out there and try to maybe get a wide receiver like Chris Godwin, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper. If we can shoot as high as A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, we do it, but we're not going to get those last 2 guys. I think it's really going to be Godwin, Higgins, Amari, A.J. Maybe you settle with like a Kirk, but those are going to be the tier players that we're looking at. But thank you again. I truly do appreciate all of you. I really hope you have a great night, and I hope we get to see you out in the live stream tomorrow.